Compact First, Workbook, 2nd edition, by Peter May. Published by Cambridge University Press and Cambridge English Language Assessment, 2014. This recording is copyright.
Unit 3. Listening, Part 3. Exam task.
You will hear 5 different people talking about a journey they have recently made. For questions 1 to 5, choose from the list A to H what each speaker says about the journey. Use the letters only once. There are 3 extra letters which you do not need to use. You now have 30 seconds to look at Part 3. Speaker 1.
There was a strong wind when we took off, so the plane was shaking a bit and some passengers were obviously getting scared, but I'd flown in much worse conditions and I wasn't bothered. For much of the flight I spent my time admiring the mountain scenery from 10,000 metres, or whatever height we were above those peaks. We were served a tasteless sandwich, which compared unfavourably with a delicious-looking hot meal being served to the lucky few in first class. I know flying is bad for the environment, but when you live on an island there really is no alternative, unless you fancy spending hours on a ferry. And in a storm like that really can be scary.
Speaker 2.
It was midwinter, and it had seemed a good idea at the time to take the train rather than go by car. As I bought the tickets online at home, I thought about relaxing while I ate a tasty meal, admiring the beautiful countryside from the window, and maybe even having a good chat with an interesting stranger sitting next to me. But in the event, the window was too dirty to see through, the food tasted like cardboard, and the man in the next seat spent the entire journey snoring loudly. The train got in on time, but long before then I was wishing I'd driven instead, whatever the risk of hold-ups and accidents that might have involved.
Speaker 3.
It had been a pretty good crossing for the first couple of hours, but then the waves got much bigger and the ship started rolling around. It wasn't that I was worried it would sink or anything like that, but I did regret having that excellent meal when I first came on board, as I began to feel quite seasick. That uncomfortable feeling in my stomach lasted the whole voyage, and I was relieved to see the harbour eventually appear in front of us, even though it was in a rather unattractive port city. Fortunately, we got in well ahead of schedule, no doubt assisted by the very strong wind blowing in the same direction as us.
Speaker 4.
I was meeting my parents at the airport, and as it would have taken nearly 3 hours by train, I took a cab instead. It was a long way on boring motorways through dull countryside, and I thought I might regret going by road, but I had such a good chat with the driver that the time just flew past, which was just as well, because we were held up for ages in a really bad jam, and despite all the driver's best efforts, without taking any risks I should add, we were never going to make it on time. To make matters worse, my parents' flight arrived early, but at least they were able to have a good meal at the airport while they waited for me.
Speaker 5.
As a student, I'd done that overnight bus journey before, and I knew how boring it was. Outside there was wonderful tropical scenery, but it was dark all the way. And of course, you don't get a meal on a coach. It was just as well I had that fantastic curry before setting off. At least, though, I thought to myself, it was safer than going in a friend's car. Until, that was, a huge lorry suddenly cut in front of us, and for a moment I wished I'd put my safety belt on. I mentioned this to the guy next to me, but he just nodded. He wasn't very friendly, and I was glad when we finally pulled in at the bus station right on time.